Okay, let's see what this one's about. All right. Is the school being compliant if they haven't hired an aide for my child yet, and has one switching back and forth? I kept asking who our aide is for my son's talking device and a picture. Then I find out after 5 emails that he doesn't have one of his own. I feel like he's been tossed around the school system. He's heading into kindergarten in his third school and needs consistency. I had to finally email the principal to find out. Our IEP, I was told that he would have his own aide hired before he started school. If I keep him out until they follow his IEP, is that on me? He needs one person. He deserves that instead of a new teacher and a new aide every year. Okay. I would need to, and I don't know if you're in Alabama or not, but if you're in Alabama, then just this is something that I would need to look at because the devil's sort of in the detail of how your IEP is written. Because I can tell you in my long history of working within schools or working on cases in Alabama, um, what they tell parents or what they promise or commit to parents in meetings doesn't end up panning out in how the IEP itself is written. And they make a lot of verbal promises to parents, and then how they write um, the information is not the same. And so therefore the parent believes that their child's entitled to one thing only to find out that the school's been rather deceptive. Now, I don't know which of the school, I think I know you're in one of two school systems is from what I sort of gather, both of which I see where you're coming from. And I think that you have a very valid concern. Now, at the same time, what your question was is that are they being compliant if they haven't hired an aide for my child yet, but they have one switching back and forth with your child? And I can tell you in that regard, they if they're providing him a human being to support him, then it could be 50 different people, and they would technically be in compliant because he would be with an aide. It doesn't necessarily have to be one particular person devoted solely to your child. That takes on a different step, and that would necessitate the need to explain within your IEP that the aide needs to be trained on your child's specific, let's say, augmentative communication device or your child's behavior intervention plan in order for them to support your child. Other than that, they're there to support your child, but in a sort of a grandiose kind of imagination format. And like I said, the devil's in the details of how it's explained and written in your child's IEP. And so in that regard, what I recommend is sending me a private message. And, what I could do is just sort of have you look. I'll tell you where you need to look in your document, and then you could sort of tell me how it's written, and then I would be able to really pinpoint and fine tune what I would recommend for you to be able to fix that. Okay, because I completely agree. Your son, if your son has been sort of tossed hither and fro, and this is the third school district or the third school within your system, and he needs that consistency, then you are absolutely correct. And it ends up becoming very disruptive to your child's ability to receive a free, appropriate public education, because many of our children require that consistency and just the natural span of time, which is typically 9 weeks, guys, maybe a little bit longer depending on our kids. Some of our kids don't warm up to teachers and aides for a lot longer than that. And if your child has communicative issues, then it takes a little bit longer for some staff members to meld and really understand the nuances and the needs of the child. So you have all of these complexities on there, and let's say your child has autism or some other type of anxiety, to where that consistency is absolutely critical. Because at that point, a consistent, predictable schedule plays such a large role in the child's ability to make progress and mitigate things like behavior, anxiety, inattention, the need for redirection, staff engagement with the child. I mean, you could sit there and list why a consistent schedule and predictable schedule is so critical for so many of our kids. And so being tossed around to different schools, especially if you're in a high growth area and they're just opening up schools and changing boundaries, that is very, very disruptive to many of our kids. So in that regard, yes, I would absolutely agree that having a consistent staff that is trained properly to be with your child becomes even more of an importance. And in that regard, it's fairly easy to fix, but at the same time, I will tell you that if they're putting somebody with your child, depending on how it's written into the IEP, then they're in compliance because somebody's there. And do they necessarily have to go hire somebody with your child's name tag on them that this person is only devoted to your child? And not necessarily. The devil's in the detail of how it's written into the IEP. Okay? And the other thing is that parents don't have the power to sit there and dictate and designate who is going to be working with their child. That is an administrative convenience. That is something that's the right of the school system, as long as they're providing somebody. And that's why I'm telling you that having an aide is only one part of the process. The second one is defining what that aide needs to know and the purpose that the aide has with regards to your child. And that's the second part, not just securing an aide, because that's just securing a warm body. What is that aide supposed to do? And it needs to be explained in the IEP, and there needs to be training devoted by specific professionals, not necessarily the resource teacher, guys, especially if we're talking about augmentative communication devices. So you need, let's say, the expertise of an SLP, and especially an SLP that has augmentative communication expertise. Then if it's behavior, then you need like a board certified behavior analyst to be involved in order to train on all of the little nuances and behavior of your child. The third one, let's say your child has orthopedic needs or occupational therapy needs, then there needs to be some collaboration with the OT so that the aide can constantly be working with your child along with PT skills. Because I have some clients with, let's say, palsy that require the constant stretching movement to make sure that my client remains as limber and flexible as possible. And so that's what I'm saying. Just sticking an aide with somebody and going, well, we're going to give you an aide. Okay. But let's write down very explicitly what the aide's responsibility is and what kind of training the aide is going to receive. And that needs to be written down. Not promised verbally. Okay. Not put in minutes. Because IEP minutes don't necessarily mean that it's going to find its way onto an IEP itself. All right? So, but like I said, just send me a private message and I can help whittle this down for you.